Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome along to a brand new episode of Much Ado About Hockey, presented by me, Gregory Richardson, live here on Puritans Radio. Your warm-up period this afternoon includes a review of the quarterfinals with a particular focus on the battle between the Cardiff Devils and the Coventry Blaze, as just across the county border in Warwickshire, Kevin Moore's team were seeking to return to Nottingham after having already made the Challenge Cup final earlier this campaign. Once I have discussed and analysed events from the last 8 of the IIHL, I will preview the semi-final fixtures and make predictions on the matches based on facts and statistics, including which team I think will be bronze medalists and playoff champions. At the end of the show, I will briefly talk about the ultimate 3-on-3 hockey breaking the ice tour event that took place in Innsbruck last weekend, and I'll also take a few minutes to remind you all of the international fixtures coming your way in the next few weeks as Team GB prepare to head to Switzerland for the 2026 IIHF World Championship, which starts on Friday, 15th May. So, in exactly 4 weeks today, yes, just 4 weeks to go. On that note, there is an important change in the Team GB roster, so stay tuned here on 007 Live to ensure that you do not miss anything important. With that in mind, all you need to do now is strap yourselves in comfortably and enjoy today's feature about ice hockey. Firstly then, last Saturday evening, so on 11th April at 7 p.m, 2,304 people were on the edge of their seats at the Skydome Arena as an edgy quarter-final battle unfolded before their eyes. Funnily enough, the Blaze and the Devils played each other on consecutive weekends at the very end of the regular season, and despite one win and one defeat for the Devils, it did seem as though they would just about have the edge in this first leg, despite playing on the road. However, Grayson Constable threatened to tear up the script as he opened the scoring on 14 minutes and 40 seconds, with some help from Finnish player Jari Virtanen. The home team kept their tails in front for 10 minutes either side of the first interval, but 2 Devils goals in the middle period meant that the Welsh side led by 2-1 after 40 minutes. Indeed, Evan Mosey and Christoph Kontos managed to beat Robson in what was an exciting second period, but there were no more goals in this game. Both Matt Robson and Christian Stover made some miraculous glove saves throughout, but ultimately the Cardiff Devils took the most slender of leads into the return leg at the Vindico Arena across the Welsh border just 22 hours later. Indeed, on Sunday, 12th April, the Blaze face an uphill task at Cardiff Bay as they had to effectively win by 2 goals to qualify for finals weekend. They could not have had a worse start as the Devils, playing in front of yet another sold-out crowd, opened the scoring after just 39 seconds, thanks to Koen Olszewski, who happened to be in the right place at the right time. And that was the only time a player from either team found the back of the net in that initial period. Consequently, with both scores added together, Kevin Moore's team were down by 3-1 when coming back onto the ice for the second period. And just when they needed to be disciplined, penalties let them down. Whereas no power play goals had been scored in Coventry the night before, Cardiff pounced on 2 consecutive away team penalties to give themselves a 3-0 lead on the night. Josh MacDonald, who also scored in Coventry on 29th March, made it 2-0 before Joey Martin ensured that Mike Pelec felt the consequences of his actions. Just 21 seconds later, Riley Brandt sealed the deal in front of a raucous crowd. At 4-0 down and 6-1 behind, overall, the Blaze had no chance. But William Boyson did manage to snare a consolation goal for both himself and the visitors. Indeed, the Danish player capped off a solid season by adding another goal to his tally for the campaign, but the Blaze will certainly have gone back to Coventry feeling very disappointed with this result, as just a month or so ago they were 60 minutes away from winning the Challenge Cup and they fell short. Subsequently, they then slumped at the end of the campaign, just about sealing 7th place in front of Glasgow. So, yet again, the Blaze failed to make finals weekend, and some questions will need to be asked in the Dragons' den over the course of the summer months to ensure that they can make the season finale in a year's time. So, the Cardiff Devils qualified in scintillating fashion with a 6-2 aggregate score triumph over the Coventry Blaze, but they were just one of 2 teams in the top 4 to qualify. The other one was the Sheffield Steelers. They were equal after the first leg against the Guildford Flames at the Spectrum on Saturday night, but a 5-1 victory at the Utilita Arena on Sunday meant that they booked their ticket to Nottingham in style. It was not, however, comfortable for the Nottingham Panthers or the Belfast Giants. In fact, both failed to qualify against Manchester Storm and Glasgow Clan, respectively, meaning that the league champions were eliminated and that Glasgow are taking part in a semi-final for the first ever time since 2014. In fact, 12 long years ago, they were still called the Braehead Clan, with the name change coming in just ahead of the 2018-19 campaign. That in itself just goes to show how long it has been since they were last present at a finals weekend. One thing is for certain, their allocation in the Motorpoint will certainly be busy and loud tomorrow. Anyway, due to the rankings and the highest seed playing the lowest seed, Cardiff take on Glasgow and Sheffield take on Manchester in what promises to be mouth-watering semi-finals. Coming up in just a mo is a preview of these encounters as I analyse the key players for each team before making my predictions. I will begin by talking about semi-final 1, which is taking place between the Devils and the Clan. First and foremost, it is important to point out here that 4 players from the Welsh franchise have already scored 2 or more points in their 2 legs against Coventry in the quarter-finals. Furthermore, 3 Cardiff Devils players are in the top 10 leading point scorers of this season's playoffs, whereas there are none for the Glasgow Clan. It is clear, therefore, that the Cardiff Devils have talent in spades. Just by looking at the score sheets from their quarterfinals and the list of top point scorers in the quarterfinals, it is clear that their key to success thus far is that several players in the roster can score goals at any moment, meaning that they are not so heavily reliant on their first line. That makes a massive difference in a game of ice hockey, especially in knockout games. For example, whilst Christoph Kontos, Josh McDonald and co unsurprisingly lead the charts, Evan Mosey and Riley Brandt, who I mentioned a moment ago, have chipped in, meaning that the workload is being shared. The biggest concern for Glasgow is that this does not seem to be the case. They seem much less threatening offensively, and only Tristan Langen, their star man all season, and Brady Risk have a goal apiece. Indeed, both of these players found the back of the net at the Braehead Arena on Sunday as the hosts clinched a dramatic shootout win against the regular season champions, the Belfast Giants. It is fair to say then that the key to success for Glasgow is very much in the hands of Finnish goaltender Sami Aito-Kallio. If he performs how he did against Belfast, so with a .97 save percentage and just 2 goals conceded, then they have a chance. But as I said last week, Cardiff have danger men across the ice and on each line, so it will be a real challenge for Aito-Kallio. As for Christian Stover, he bounced back very well from his poor showing in Coventry just 13 days before the first leg, as he also has a save percentage north of 96, and he also conceded just 2 goals. So it will be very tight, and one suspects that the netminders will have a large say in this contest, as is fairly standard when it comes to crunch time games in knockout rounds, as I said just a moment ago. On balance then, looking at the stats, it seems as though Cardiff will edge it by 4 goals to 2, needing an empty net goal to seal a place in this year's final. It just seems as though their players have the ability to share the workload, whereas Glasgow seem very reliant on a small group of 2 or 3 players, and that does not cut it at this stage of the season. As for semi-final 2, that will be between the Sheffield Steelers and the Manchester Storm. This contest promises to be full of twists and turns, and maybe even a surprise. Why do I say that? Well, there are several reasons. First and foremost, the Storm managed to eliminate the Panthers in the quarterfinals, so they have already played a tough opponent twice en route to tomorrow's last 4 encounter. Furthermore, whereas the Steelers have 3 point scorers in the top 10 of the playoff scoring charts, a bit like Cardiff, Manchester have multiple players on at least 2 points, and it is clear that they have several players who could make decisive contributions. Critchlow's men have also arguably been the more consistent team this season. Granted, Sheffield were top of the tree at one point, but they did not manage to maintain that, and they slipped down to 4th, swapping places with Belfast gradually as the new year became spring. Manchester, on the other hand, made their way up to 6th and stayed there for the large part, even reaching 5th at one point, meaning that you could argue that they actually improved as the season wore on, unlike Sheffield. Once again, though, the key for any knockout game is discipline and the performance of the respective goaltenders. On paper, Greenfield seems to have their advantage in this head-to-head, but Nottingham and Guildford are poles apart when it comes to a comparison, and Drew Derrida has proven time and time again this season that when against it, he can come up with the goods, especially in a penalty shootout, and it may well come down to that on the night. It will be that close, I am fairly sure. In numbers then, Matthew Greenfield is at 96.15% after starting both games against the Flames, conceding only 2 goals at an average of exactly 1 goal per game, as both games finished after regular time. As for Drew Derrida, his save percentage is at .938, and he has had to fish out 5 pucks from his net at an average of 2.4 goals per game. Just in case you're wondering why it is not 2.5, it is because Manchester played overtime against Nottingham as well. So that is always factored into the equation when calculating goals conceded per 60 minutes, which is the length of a regulation game, just in case you needed reminding. Again, on balance, and bearing in mind that Manchester have been able to beat Sheffield already this season, it seems likely that they will win this game, but they will probably need overtime or Derrida's shootout skills to overcome Aaron Fox's Sheffield Steelers. It will be a close game, and I'm fairly certain that the final score after the extras will be 4-3 to the Storm, meaning that Sheffield will take on Glasgow in the third place playoff, and that the final will be hotly contested between Cardiff and Manchester. Who'd have thought that a week ago? If this scenario pans out, I think Sheffield would beat Glasgow quite comfortably. So I'll say Steelers 4, Clan 1, and they will take home a bronze medal for their efforts this campaign. As for the final, it will be close, but the Cardiff Devils will have too much firepower and they will prove to be too hot to handle for Critchlow's troops. Cardiff will win by 4-2, and that is not a fourth goal in the empty net. In fact, I think Cardiff will have the opportunity to put a fifth one into the net with no keeper at home, but they will ice it a few times, meaning that they are under pressure at the end of the game. But as usual, they will find a way to hold out. So, in brief, Sheffield will finish third, Manchester second, and Cardiff will be your 2026 playoff champions. Now then, it's time to talk Team GB as the inaugural Ultimate 3-on-3 hockey tournament on the Breaking the Ice Tour took place last weekend, and the British side, featuring 3 Dundee Stars, so Chris Inglis, Johnny Curran and Johnny McBean, claimed a silver medal for their relentless efforts in Austria. Whilst they lost 9-4 in the final against Hungary, their efforts were recognised in several intense games. Matches comprised of 2 periods of 12 minutes with just a 3-minute intermission. So, making a final was no means feat. Therefore, all members of that squad should feel very proud of their achievement. Just in case you're interested, I can also tell you that Estonia clinched the bronze medal by narrowly beating the Netherlands by 6-5 just before the final took place last Sunday evening. Sticking with the international scene for now, today marks just 4 weeks before the IIHF World Championship begins in Zurich and Freiburg across the Channel in Switzerland. Now, if you remember, they were supposed to host the tournament in May 2020, but because of the lockdown, they were unable to. To compensate for this, the IIHF managed to find another year for Switzerland to host, and so they finally get their turn 6 years later. So now in 2026. Switzerland is a proud hockey nation, and despite the huge controversy of a host venue moving from Lausanne to Freiburg, the country is very much looking forward to welcoming the 15 other teams to the event, including Great Britain, who, funnily enough, are in Group A alongside Switzerland, meaning that they will both play their allocated fixtures at the Swiss Life Arena in the old capital city. Before 15th May, though, Team GB have 2 preparation games to play against Olympic hosts Italy. Just in case you needed reminding, they take on each other in Milton Keynes on Thursday, 30th April at 7:30 p.m. and then in Nottingham, so at the Motorpoint Arena, on Saturday, 2nd May at 7 p.m. Then they'll have another fortnight to prepare before playing their opening game of the Worlds against Austria on Saturday, 16th May at 11:20 BST. Before I go through the fixture list in detail, though, I will just take a moment to share a big piece of news, because Jackson Whistle of the Belfast Giants is no longer able to take part in the tournament, meaning that Lucas Bryan from Glasgow has been called up in his place as the 3rd netminder to go across the Channel in 28 days' time. Anyway, Back to Team GB's fixtures, and after taking on Austria that Saturday lunchtime, they will face the US on Sunday 17th May at 11:20, Hungary on Tuesday 19th May at 19:20, Switzerland, the hosts, on Thursday 21st May at 19:20, Finland the following night at 19:20, Latvia on Sunday 24th May at 15:20, and last but not least, they face Germany to complete their pool matches on Monday 25th May at 19:20. I'd like to point out here that all times are BST, so British Summertime, just in case you wanted clarification. I say this because Switzerland is an hour ahead compared to UK time. Anyway, it promises to be a thoroughly enjoyable 2 weeks of competitive ice hockey, and if the Olympics is anything to go by, there could be a few upsets here and there. The main question is, though, can GB stay in the top flight for another year? Well, they will have to target their games against Austria and Hungary if they are to do so. But you never know, there could be a mega surprise in store, just like in last weekend's Elite League quarterfinals. But do not worry, I will be covering the event here on 007 Live for 3 consecutive weeks, so you will not miss any of the key moments. Those few weeks will be a real treat both for you and for me, and I cannot wait to share the best moments of the Worlds with you right here on 007 Live every Friday afternoon whilst the competition is taking place in probably my favourite country. Right then, that is it for today's episode of Much Ado About Hockey with me, Gregory Richardson, here on Puritans Radio. I hope that you have enjoyed yet another action-packed show, and there will be another one for you next Friday, same time, same place, when I will be able to take you back to Nottingham to relive this season's grand finale. For now, though, it is time for me to pass you back to our incredible host, Ian Fleming, for the remainder of today's 007 Live. Have a great weekend, everyone. Goodbye and take care.